We all play the classical openings like e4, e5, e4, c5, the Sicilian, or even the queen's pawn, d4, d5. These openings are quite popular and everyone analyzes them in detail. The problem for black is that white can play in many different ways. Say for example, after e4, e5, he can go for the Italian, or he can play the Roy Lopez, or even the Scotch opening. On the second move, he can also play the bishop's opening, the Vienna game, or even the king's gambit. Basically, white decides what he wants to play, he can prepare for it and use it to his advantage. As black, it is not practically possible for you to memorize all these different lines. Therefore, in this video, I'll give you a very easy and solid opening system which you can use as black and win a lot of games. Let's get straight into it. After e4, the move I want to recommend is d6, the Pirc Defence. Some people also pronounce this as the Pirc Defence. This is a modern opening, so we are allowing white to take control of the center, and in return we'd counter-attack later with our minor pieces. After this, you can play knight f6, attacking this pawn. He'll have to defend it with something like knight c3. By the way, if he pushes e5, then he's in big trouble already, because after takes, we can exchange the queen and then knight g4. We are threatening to take the rook, so he'll have to protect this f2 square and eventually he's down a pawn. So in this position, moving forward is not a good idea. Therefore, knight c3 is the most popular response. Now here I want to give you two options. You can play whichever you're comfortable with. Both of these will help you reach a decent position by the middle game without getting stuck in the opening. Okay, so the first one is the main line where you can play g6, fianchet of the bishop and castle on the king side. I will go through this in detail in the later part of this video, but first let's look at another interesting variation which starts with the move c6. This is the Czech defense. The idea behind this move is of course to stop the knight from jumping into our territory and also to prepare and expand on the queen side. But the most important reason is to open up this diagonal for the queen. I know some of you might be a little reluctant to bring out your queen so early, and that's why I also have the option of g6 for you. But believe me, this is also a very good variation to try out, especially because many white players are not prepared for this line, so they don't know how to exactly deal with this, and there are many ways white can go wrong. Anyway, let's look at the strategy for black. Let's say white plays knight f3. Then you will bring out your queen along this diagonal. Now the reason we avoid getting the queen out so early is that it can easily be attacked by the opponent to gain tempo. However, in this position, if you look at it, there isn't much that white can do to immediately attack our queen apart from b4, in which case you just capture the pawn. So bringing the queen to a5 is perfectly fine. The knight is now pinned, and if white is not careful and makes a natural looking move like bishop e2 or say bishop c4 preparing to castle on the king side, then that's a mistake because we can pick up this pawn for free as this knight can't move. Therefore, in this position, white has to do something about this pawn. If he defends this way with say bishop d3, then your plan would be to break open the center, and the main move here is pawn to e5. If he takes, we take back and this pawn remains protected by the queen. That's a good solid setup for black. We now have space in the center, and this knight is also kind of handicapped as he can't jump in because of this pawn. Okay, let's go back. Now if at any time you feel that your queen is being threatened, let's say here he goes bishop to d2, planning a discovered attack, then you'll have to move your queen. And for that, just remember, c7 will always be your go-to square. This way you'll always keep control of the e5 square with your queen, so keep that in mind. Alright, in this position, after you play e5 and if it does not take and plays some other move like short castle, then you don't need to take this pawn. Just wait and continue with your natural development. First bishop e7, then castle on the king side. You can also play h6 to prevent any of these pieces from coming into g5. And once you're done with the king side, your plan will be to expand on the queen side. This knight will generally move out from here. This bishop can come to b7 or e6, and both the rooks will attack along the center. That's how you should play this as black. But what about white? What is the best way for white to respond to the Czech defense? And what if black plays g6 on move 4? Yes, all that's coming up in this video, but before that, guys, if you like the editing, presentation and graphics in my videos, then I would like to tell you that all these skills can be easily learned online, and for that, Skillshare is your #1 place to go. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators. They have courses from award-winning experts on a variety of topics like graphics designing, web development, marketing, photography, editing, and the list goes on. I have myself tried these courses on social media strategy, which have helped me tremendously in growing this channel. I learned a lot about my audiences, my content, and even personal branding, so Skillshare has been really helpful for me. You can also try out Skillshare for a monthly subscription of just Rs 149 and take unlimited classes for any topic you like. And because Skillshare has sponsored this video, I have a special offer for you all. The first 1,000 of my subscribers who click on the link in the description will get a free 1-month trial of Skillshare. So do try it out for free, link is in the description box below. Before moving on, let's do a quick recap of the Czech defense. As black, you'll start off with d6, knight f6, and then you'll play c6, bringing out your queen to a5. If white attacks your queen in any way, just bring it back to c7. Your next plan is to push e5, attack the center, develop your bishop, and castle on the king side. That's how you easily get to a solid position by the middle game. Now, if you're playing as white and your opponent plays c6, the main move I would recommend for white is pawn to f4. Most players feel that it weakens their king, and that's the reason why they don't even consider it. But I actually like this move because we are consolidating our position in the center. See how strong this looks. Plus, there isn't much that black can do to attack the white king, so it's not that risky. We can also play h3 if required and stop the knight or bishop from coming here. Now after queen a5, you play bishop d3 to defend this pawn. And after e5, now you play knight f3. You develop the knight behind the pawn. Now because of f4, you have an additional attacker on e5, and that makes a huge difference. Black cannot just keep the tension, he will have to capture immediately or do something about this e5 pawn, otherwise white can just take and end up with a free pawn. Capturing on f4 will allow white to easily develop his dark squared bishop, therefore taking on d4 is a better option. You can recapture with the knight, and now if you look at the position, white looks fine, especially because of all these pieces in the center. Going back, in this position, if black decides not to take immediately, he can also play something like bishop g4, pin this knight, and add another defender with knight d7. In such variations, white can play bishop e3 to defend further and then castle on the king side. Nevertheless, even if white plays this perfectly, the game is still in the balance and black always has a good chance in this opening. So that was the Czech variation. Now let's look at the main line of the Pirc defense. e4, d6, d4, knight f6, knight c3, and instead of c6, here we go for g6. There could be different move orders to this, but ultimately you will reach this very position. As black, your strategy would be to fianchetto your bishop, castle on the king side, secure your king, break open the center, and attack on the queen side. This is very straightforward for black since the piece setup will be almost similar in every variation. But white would need to study and prepare for a lot of variations, and that's why I like this opening for black. Now from here, white can respond in 4 different ways. The most common response from white is the classical move knight to f3. Both sides develop naturally, and after all these common moves, what white can do is to expand on the queen side with a4 and then eventually push a5 to restrict black's position. Another idea could be to play the dark squared bishop to e3 followed by queen d2 and finally bishop to h6. If black exchanges, white can take back with the queen and black's dark squares are weakened. Those were some of the main ideas for white. Now as black, you should look to activate your bishop and maybe even exchange with this knight. g4 seems the best square for the bishop since all the other squares on this diagonal can be easily attacked. For the other pieces, you can bring out the knight this way and place the queen on c7. And in order to prevent white's a4, a5 push, another good move you can make is a5. You can then play knight a6, knight b4 and reposition it on this extremely active b4 square. We'll not get into too many variations in detail because I don't want to confuse you, but I hope you got the main ideas for both white and black. Alright, now after the classical variation, let's have a look at the second response by white, and that is the Austrian attack, which begins with the move f4. This is the most aggressive approach that white can take. The idea is to develop the knight behind this pawn, as we saw in the Czech variation, and push f5 to attack the king side. Here white can develop the light squared bishop to d3 and then open up this diagonal towards the king by pushing e5, also attacking the knight. This looks good as it is supported by both these pawns and the knight. e5 is going to be the main move for white in this variation, so keep that in mind. To attack black's king, white can also push these pawns and castle on the queen side. He can prepare something like h3, g4, bishop d3 and advance forward with f5. In the Austrian attack, black does not have much space because of these 3 pawns in the center. So a good idea for black is to challenge white's central domination by playing moves like c5 or even knight c6 and e5. An exchange would help black to gain central space and get some counterplay with his minor pieces. There's also this interesting line after e5 where black can sack his knight to immediately get a pawn advantage and completely disrupt white's center. Another good option is c5, after which you can use the same idea as that of the Czech variation where you bring out the queen to a5 and indirectly threaten this pawn. Unlike the Czech, this time you also have the deadly bishop along this diagonal which you can use to create some nasty attacks. Okay, now the final 2 variations have quite similar ideas, so let's look at them together. First, we have the 150 attack, which is bishop e3, and the other one is the Byrne variation, which is bishop g5. Since black is almost certain to castle on the king side, the strategy for white is to play queen d2, do an opposite side castle, break open the king side with these pawns, create an open file for the rook, and also try to exchange the bishops to expose the king. If white goes for the Byrne variation, he can also think of taking the knight to create doubled pawns for black. Now since white is looking to hijack the king side, what black can do here is to attack on the queen side. One of the best ways is to play c6, b5 and increase control over the c4 square. It is a good idea to bring the knight to this square in this way because from there the knight controls the queen side as well as these important squares in the center. Black can also develop his queen moving it to a5 and create potential attacks against the white king along with the b pawn. Alright, so it's puzzle time. In this position, it is white's turn and you need to find the best move for white. Do share your answers in the comment section below. Let's see how many of you can solve this. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe and I shall see you in the next one.